What is up, everybody, and welcome back to episode 18 of the Triple Threat Talk podcast. I'm your host, Connor Ryan. As you can see, my new addition to the setup, for those that are listening on Spotify, I got a microphone arm, so I don't have to just be leaning forward, talking into the mic the entire time. I actually get to kind of be a little bit more animated than I was originally, which is pretty nice. It actually, I think, will make the episodes a little bit better, and I'll actually be able to be a little bit more expressive about my takes and how I feel about the status of the NBA. So yeah, very happy for that. Shout out my mom for the Christmas present. Hope everyone is doing well. Hope everyone has had a good weekend. I did until Sunday, but we will get into that in a little bit. Before we begin, if you like this content, if you like listening to me talking about the NBA, then please like and follow. Subscribe if you're on YouTube. Follow my podcast if you're listening on Spotify. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Talkin' Triple. And then I actually just created my TikTok page at Triple Threat Talk 0. Apparently, Triple Threat Talk has already been taken. So it is what it is. If you follow me on Instagram, I'll be just posting the same stuff there. Just the same clips from the episodes, just so more people can, follow along and possibly get this off the ground even more. Very excited for episode for you all today. We're going to talk about some of the recent NBA news, and then we're going to go through the weekend games, and then I have a top 10 list of the top 10 players currently in the NBA who I would build a franchise around. I will do a little bit more explaining of that when we get to it, but we will get to it when we get to it. So yeah, if you have any questions or any comments about the podcast, please reach out to me on my socials. And yeah, let's get right into it. So as I said, we're going to kick off with some NBA news from the weekend. And the most prominent news was the suspension of Jimmy Butler. For those of you who don't know, Jimmy Butler was suspended 7 games due to his comments, I think from Thursday's game, in which he kind of just talked about how he isn't really having much fun anymore on the basketball court and is just looking to find that fun again. And what he really was trying to say was, I want out of Miami. I don't want to play here anymore. I would like to go somewhere else, try and be on a better contender, and hopefully just be a part of a franchise that actually will value me. I see it, but I also don't see it. I see it from the perspective of, hey, you want to win. Jimmy has always stated that he wants to be a winner. He has never stated, hey, I want to go and play with my friends. I want to go and be on this team for this specific reason. He wants to go to the best team possible that is going to give him the best chance to win an NBA title. And it's been like that for his entire career. He's bounced around from teams from Chicago to Philly to Minnesota. Back in, I think 2018 or 2019, he came to Miami hoping to find that success. Led by Pat Riley, being coached by possibly the best coach in the NBA in Eric Spoelstra, I believe so. And also just a budding franchise. Bam Adebayo was drafted around that time. A couple years later, Tyler Hero would be on the team. And overall, just a dynamic for him that would truly allow him to be the number one player on a contender. And so to hear the news that he wants out, to hear that the situation of the relationship between him and Pat Riley, to hear about the just overall tension that has been kind of building up, not only just from his side, but from the locker room as a whole, it's both shocking, yet it kind of makes sense. It kind of makes sense in the aspect of, we've seen it before. He wanted to be the guy in Philly. Philly chose Tobias Harris over him, and then he wanted out. Minnesota, he wanted to be the guy. They were going to choose a rising Karl Anthony Towns over him. He wanted out. And then it was just some fights with Tom Thibodeau in Chicago and just not really getting paid, and so he wanted out there. And so I just think you almost have to question, like, who would want Jimmy Butler on their team? Now, from a player standpoint, I don't see why you wouldn't. Averaged average 20 to 22 point per game scorer, solid, very good defender, solid playmaker, just overall clutch guy, and just a very good leadership presence. But if you don't go around from team to team without having a little bit of locker room issues or just kind of almost being a cancer in the locker room. Now, I know this is gonna sound pretty obvious. I don't know Jimmy. I don't think I'll ever meet him. If I do, that'd be really cool. But I just don't think I question a team taking him in the sense of this isn't 30-year-old Jimmy. This isn't 32-year-old Jimmy. I'm pretty sure Jimmy Butler is, I want to say 34, 35. And with that, I think just brings a lot of concerns. Now, I know the NBA and the money aspect is pretty ridiculous. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are going to be making $60 million in a couple seasons each, and will be the primary source of cap for the Boston Celtics. Bradley Beal is making $50 million for over or $250 million over 5 years on his current contract. Jamal Murray is a 4-year, $200 million. So you almost question, like, where does this money come from? A lot of it is like an NBA player their prime or their skill doesn't decrease as quickly as per a football player or maybe a baseball player even, or a hockey player. And so if they just stay healthy, then usually you'll be able to kind of have that success moving forward. Jimmy Butler has had very few seasons where you can confidently say he has been healthy for at least 70 plus games and then the playoffs. That was the whole reason they were the 8 seed last year, and that was part of the reason they were the 8 seed the season before. And so you almost have to question, why would a team take in a 50-something million contract? Why would they want to bring in this guy who, for his entire career, has demanded the ball or wanted the ball in his hands at those moments? Why would they do that? And a lot of it is just the trial run. I think you only would have to pay him for, I think, next season. You wouldn't really have to worry as much about as much of the current financial statement as you would later. But if you were to say, like, hey, you get a all-star equivalent player for these next 2 years, most teams would grab at that. I have always been an outlier in the Jimmy Butler situation. I have never really viewed him as a top tier player. And by top tier, I mean kind of those top 20 players in the world. I just don't really think he is the most effective shot creator. I don't really think he's the most effective playmaker. His defense is very solid, but with the injuries that he's dealt with over the past couple of seasons, he's definitely digressed a little bit. And he was also just put in a perfect situation in Miami. When you have Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, Terry Rozier, 3 players who are high volume 3-point shooters, and then you have a middleman in Bam Adebayo being able to not only just space the floor with his shooting ability, but also just a guy that knows how to move around the ball, move without it as well, and also just overall just create space for you to get up those shots. So I do understand the appeal. Where he will go, I think there are 2 primary destinations. The one that most people have been hearing about is the Phoenix Suns. And the other one that has kind of rose onto the scene, I think ever since Friday or Saturday, was the Memphis Grizzlies. They are very much in dire need of another perimeter or another just kind of shot creating player. They do have Desmond Bane, but he's very much more catch and shooter. Ja Morant can shot create. Jaren Jackson Jr. can shot create, but isn't the most effective outside of 15 feet or more. And so if you're able to bring in somebody with playoff deep run DNA to a younger team like the Grizzlies, then I think that would really help their situation more than I would say other teams that we were originally hearing. like the Rockets or the Mavericks or the Warriors. The Mavericks and the Warriors, those are two teams that have championship history, championship like longevity on their roster, and they don't really want to be able to they don't want to be willing to spend that kind of money on a player like Jimmy if it's only going to be for a loan. Whereas the Mavericks, I think, would have made sense, but it would have just kind of maybe caused some intrigue or maybe some overall just questions within their offense, and maybe like who are some of the pieces that they would have to let go. Would it be somebody in their top 8 or 9 who are rather high contributors? So like, would a PJ Washington have to go? Would it maybe even a Najee Marshall, who they just brought in and has been providing for them very well as of late? And speaking of Dallas, tough news that Kyrie Irving is going to be out for 1 to 2 weeks. So you could almost say like, oh, Jimmy Butler would be perfect for a situation right now. I would disagree. I think he has the ability to kind of have those big game moments, but he isn't really the player that I would want in those big game moments. If your teams were 100, 30 seconds left and your team has the ball and you need a shot, then I would say you would need Jimmy Butler in that situation. But if you needed a performance like Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals in 2022, then sure, Jimmy Butler would have been that guy then. That was 2.5 years ago. Almost 3 years of time have happened. The last year's playoffs, he wasn't present. Year before, he was, and they went on a crazy title run, which also led to the overall franchise issues that caused Pat Riley to kind of say, we have a good enough team. When in reality, they didn't. They just got extremely lucky and everything like that. I don't know how I feel. I think I'd love to see him the best. I think the spot that fits him the best is the Grizzlies, in my opinion. I just think it would be a hard-nosed, gritty culture in Memphis, and he wouldn't be as reliant or as pressured to try and put up the 20-something points that he is normally accustomed to in the Miamis of the world, where you have a variety of players, a hodgepodge of players that are able to contribute on their own and overall just lead you to deeper into the playoffs than what they would have been last season. So I think the Grizzlies are the best fit for him, but 7-game suspension is pretty crazy. He didn't exactly say that he wanted to be traded, but everybody kind of knew. And I know the person that was most excited to see that press conference was Shams, and kind of just like having a smile after the whole Jimmy Butler's agent and Shams debacle, basically saying like you're just spouting out of your ass that these teams want, or that Jimmy's going to go to these teams, like whatever. So it is what it is. But speaking of one of the teams I mentioned, the Suns, their main piece would have been Bradley Beal. Now, Bradley Beal has not been performing up to the level that the Suns were hoping him to. In fact, that he and Yusuf Nurkic actually are benched now for Mason Plumlee and Ryan Dunn. Mason Plumlee, who has always been regarded as a solid backup center during his tenure in the NBA, and Ryan Dunn, who is a current rookie, but very much has the attributes to be a rising star. They're going to look to them to help provide and maybe steer the ship in the right direction for them. Now, Yusuf Nurkic, I have always had questions for. Offensively, he's been solid, but defensively, he hasn't always been the traditional big man. He has adapted his game to kind of become more of the prototypical NBA center nowadays, with the stretching of the floor ability, being able to hit the outside shots. But you could tell that his selfishness was getting in the way and causing some disruption within the offense. And Bradley Beal, when you bring in a guy who's on a 5-year, $250 million contract, you want him to provide the two, like similar to what $250 million worth of money is. And I'd say that's 20 plus point per game scoring, solid defense, and overall just being a shot making guard. And he hasn't been able to do that this season. It just seems like there's a lot of disruption within the organization, a lot of disruption within the locker room. And it was actually reported today by John Gambadoro that he is willing to waive his no trade clause for these 3 teams, the Los Angeles Lakers, the Miami Heat, and the Denver Nuggets. So that opens up the possibilities a lot more for a Jimmy Butler trade. I don't know I don't think the Nuggets would do it because of they would have to give up maybe Christian Braun and or no, they'd probably have to give up like Michael Porter Jr. and another like solidly expensive piece, which I don't think they want to give up Michael Porter Jr. because he's been their best second option for the past couple of games. And as of late, especially with just how lackluster Jamal Murray's performance has been. And for the Lakers, I also don't think they will because I think that means they have to give up like 3 or 4 players just for one guy in return. So I don't think they would be willing to do that either. So right now, I think the Heat is probably the best bet for a Bradley Beal deal. I know that he would work out. He would basically be like a 1A, 1B kind of situation in terms of the scoring options for them with Tyler Hero. But I just don't really think Jimmy going to the Suns and Bradley Beal going to the Heat would really benefit both sides as much as people really think. I saw a tweet yesterday that somebody said after the Celtics Thunder game, which I know we'll get to later in the episode, but they were talking about how we should trade Jimmy Butler for Jaylen Brown. No, we're not. I don't want that to happen. I don't want that to happen whatsoever, in fact. So, yeah. And final piece of news, Jonathon Kuminga suffered a significant ankle sprain and will be out for 3 weeks. What does this do? Hurts his trade value for the Warriors, also hurts the Warriors' offensive production as a whole for the next couple of weeks, and a team that is sliding extremely, not heading in the direction that they hope they were compared to what they were doing at the beginning of the season. Like they were a top 1 or top 2 team in the West, and I think they're down to like 8 or 9, maybe even 10. They're right around 500. So I just think in a scenario like that, you gotta look at the other guys to step up. Buddy Hield has not been playing as well as he was compared to the beginning of the season. I think towards the beginning of the season, he was averaging like 20 points per game. Now he's averaging about 8, which isn't good at all. Andrew Wiggins is going to have to step up. You're going to need some of those bench guys to step up. Moses Moody, Lindy Waters. Like you need more. Brandon Podziemski when he gets fully healthy. You're going to need some balance from your team. And I just don't think the Warriors are going to be able to stay afloat, especially if Steph is dealing with some injuries here and there and going to have to take some nights off due to injury management. But I think it will be, but I think this will help with developing some guys, developing certain players, and just being able to hopefully get them back on the right track and back into the postseason, which I know is their goal. So yeah. All right. Let's get into some of the games from the weekend. We have 3 games from Friday, 3 games from Saturday, and then only 1 game from Sunday because I was watching football majority of the day. It's very sad that the Patriots didn't get the number 1 pick, but we move on. We also have an Instagram question later, but we will get right into the Friday games. The first game I'm going to talk about is the Celtics defeating the Houston Rockets 109-89. Is that score correct? I feel like it wasn't. 109-86. Sorry about that, everyone. Peyton Pritchard led the way for the Celtics. 20 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists. Derek White, 23 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists. And Jason Tatum, 20 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. This was huge. Having a back-to-back game after the late game thriller that was against Minnesota the night before. Being able to go against Ime Udoka and a very stout, strong Rockets defense, being able to go against a strong defense like that and have the performance that they did was huge. If you heard my rant from a couple episodes, you would know that a lot of my concern was more so the defensive intensity from the Celtics and also a little bit of the shot making. And they were hitting their shots tonight, but they were also defending the ball very well. The Rockets tend to play at a slower pace compared to the Celtics, where the Celtics are a much more blend of some fast break points, but also their half court set, where the Rockets are very much like they will work in transition after they get the steals, but it's more so the half court sets that really try and get them back for their defensive rhythm. And the Celtics were able to get those out of them. And they were hitting their shots. They were being very effective. They were causing turnovers. They were rebounding the ball well. And that's huge because the Rockets are the number 1 offensive rebounding team in the NBA. And just overall, a huge win. This was without Jaylen Brown, and to have back-to-back wins on back-to-back nights, it says a lot. A lot of the times teams kind of almost are like written off and saying, oh, like it's the excuse of like, oh, we had a back-to-back. But whenever you're able to win both on the road against an incredibly tough opponent in Minnesota who has been struggling as of late, but still has the players and the coaching and the atmosphere that they want to win. And then a Rockets team that is young, hungry, and trying to prove that they deserve to be in the top of the Western Conference. When you win those games, that says a lot. That means more than just winning 2 games with like 2 days in between. So just a huge win for the Celtics, but unfortunately for the Houston Rockets, Jabari Smith in shoot around that the day of the game fractured his right hand, and he will be out for 4 to 8 weeks. Obviously, that doesn't help. That doesn't help because when you lose somebody like Jabari Smith, a 6'8", 6'9", incredible wing defender, but also truly can guard 1 through 5, is developing his offensive game a lot better this season and wants to be a part of this culture, and losing him for 4 to 8 weeks, that doesn't help. And speaking of help, the Jalen Green led the way for them with 27 points, 3 rebounds, and 1 assist. And that was as much offensive production as they could get. Alperen Sengun had 14.7 rebounds, 3 assists. Cam Whitmore had 11.6 rebounds. But Fred VanVleet didn't show up. Dylan Brooks didn't show up, which I'm completely fine with. And so the Rockets are, I think, unfortunately finding their slump. I do think that they're a very volatile team. I think they're very talented. They were without the Terror Twins and Amin Thompson and Tari Eason. And so that maybe those two kind of changed the dynamic of the game. But the Celtics just didn't have an issue with the Rockets in this one. The Rockets are, when we look at the Western Conference and you kind of talk about like, oh, this is why it's so tough with the Western Conference, I don't really think people are going to be talking about the Rockets. I do think they're a very talented team. I just think they need a true dynamic scorer that isn't somebody of Fred VanVleet's stature. Sure, SGA is a point guard, but he's 6'6". He can post you up with ease and get those turnaround mid-ranges. Jason Tatum is 6'8", 6'9", and can score on all 3 levels. Victor Wembanyama is 7'4" and can score from all 3 levels. Same with Jokic, Kevin Durant. And so, like, Steph Curry, I'd say, is the only one where he can get to his shot with ease or with his own creation that is a little bit on the smaller side. So I do think the Rockets are going to kind of have a little wake-up call in terms of the actual reality of the team. And I think a lot of that is just their offense. They are incredibly inefficient shooting the ball. They don't rack up a lot of assists. They play a lot of kind of just hoping that the matchup happens, where with the Celtics, that doesn't really happen a lot because they have 5 guys usually on the floor that they can just switch matchups with and just be able to just kind of, like, the Celtics do play like the Drew Holiday will guard the center, so that when the center comes up, it's like Jason Tatum will switch on to the center and Drew Holiday is going to be guarding the guard on the screen and roll. And that works. And it clearly worked in this one, being able to hold a Rockets team who in the fourth quarter alone, until I think about the final minute of the game, didn't even score 10 points in the fourth. And if you want to win games, especially in April, May, and June, you can't just score 10 points in the fourth quarter. And I mean, I'll talk about it with the Celtics later against the Thunder. And if you want to be a legit contender, you got to hit shots. If you want to be a legit contender, you got to be able to have the offensive balance compared to your defense. And so I do like the Rockets. I like Ime Udoka's style, but they got to find some offensive production. And if they don't, then that's going to be the downfall for them. Next game up, the Spurs defeated the Nuggets in a thriller in Denver, 113-110. The Spurs won that one. Victor Wembanyama, 35 points, 18 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 steal, and 2 blocks. Just another alien game from the alien himself. Devin Vassell with 18 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, and 2 steals. Keldon Johnson, 16 points and 4 rebounds, with CP only scoring 7 points, but also grabbing 8 rebounds and dishing out 11 assists. The Spurs have very much exceeded their expectations, in my opinion. For a team that had high expectations specifically for Wemby, coming into his second season, coming into a situation where it was like, all right, all eyes are on you. He has lived up to those. He was pulling up from 30 feet, and then he would block a guy from one on the other side of the hoop for a layup. And so when you have that dynamic force on both ends, and quite possibly the best two-way player in the league, it really does generate a lot more offense than people think. When you get games like this from Devin Vassell, when you get a scoring performance like this from Keldon Johnson, when CP3 is able to facilitate the ball across the floor to the Julian Champagnes of the world, the Zach Collins of the world, Trey Jones, Stephon Castle, that allows the offense to generate, and that allows the freeness of Wemby to happen. A lot of teams are going to double Wemby because of how much gravity he enforces onto you, or enforces on the offensive side of the ball. If you start hitting shots, or if other players start hitting shots, then boom, Wemby's able to find his rhythm, find his groove, and play at a much more free level. I'm very excited for this Spurs team. I think Stephon Castle was a great pick for them. Originally, I wanted them to select Rob Dillingham just so they could have another true scorer, and for CP3 to help him kind of understand like how to facilitate, what to look for when you are playing point guard in the NBA. But I think Stephon Castle has been incredibly intelligent on the defensive side of the ball. Sure, has a lot to work on his offensive game, specifically with his shooting and shot creating, but at times shows how remarkable of a playmaker he can be, and also kind of helps understand, like, is getting a fast track into understanding, like, hey, this is the NBA, this is how it's run, this is how it's done. So when you have the situation that the Spurs are in, all things are positive. It's all going up, and that just makes me very excited. It's not something to where you kind of question it and say, like, well, why are they only like a couple games above 500? I don't think anybody was like, I had them very much towards the bottom. I had them high lottery. Like, and by high lottery, I mean like 5-6 level, not like 7-8 seed, 9 seed in the West level. So, and the crazy thing is they're only going to get better. I think they have like 2 or 3 draft picks that are projected in the first round. And I mean, if you're a free agent, you're looking at Victor Wembanyama and saying, I want to play with that guy. I want to play with possibly the player who's going to define this next generation. And who wouldn't? If he works on his playmaking, like I was talking to my good friend Zach, and he and I were talking, and we were just like, when we think Wemby's peak is Kevin Durant scoring-esque level, and Nikola Jokic playmaking with his defense. I mean, I really can't think of a more perfect player. And if that, and the day that happens, the day that we see a quadruple double, the day that we see a 50-point triple double, that's the moment that like we've made it to that. And by 50-point triple double, I mean like 50-point triple double that looks so easy. Like the reign of terror that is Victor Wembanyama is approaching us so much faster than I think we ever could have imagined. That's terrifying. But it's also awesome to see as an NBA fan. And I mean, for the Nuggets, Nikola Jokic did not back down from the challenge. 41 points, 18 rebounds, 9 assists, 2 steals. Like, holy shit. I know I don't curse a lot on this podcast, but holy shit. Michael Porter Jr., 22 points, 4 rebounds. It's just, I know Aaron Gordon was out of this game. So who do you go to as your third option and you need him there? Jamal Murray. Who wasn't there? Jamal Murray. 14 points, 4 rebounds, 7 assists. Sure, those numbers look great. He shot 35% from the field. He needs to be making shots. I know it's much easier said than done. I think he went 6 of 19 from the field. Those are numbers that are going to lose you basketball games. It just is. I can't put it any more simply than those are numbers that if you have those numbers, they aren't going to be able to help you. The Nuggets want to be a contender. They want to. I know they want to. Calvin Booth got those four guys in Michael Porter Jr., Nikola Jokic, Aaron Gordon, and Jamal Murray on long-term contracts because he trusts those four guys to take them into the Western Conference Finals, into the NBA Finals, and to hopefully win another championship. Unfortunately, the one guy who you paid more than everyone else other than Jokic and Jamal Murray isn't stepping up. Russell Westbrook has been playing great, and I think it's great that he is starting with Murray at the 2. He doesn't have to worry as much about just handling the ball. Let Russ take care of that. A true point guard doing what a true point guard does. Jamal Murray has always facilitated with the ability of shot creating, not the playmaking aspect. I've seen it firsthand. I went to the Nuggets Celtics game at the Garden last year. Jamal Murray cooked the Celtics. He got 41 points on 80% shooting. When he hits those numbers, that's when this Nuggets team goes back into the contending spot. Right now, they're just a playoff team. They just are. It's as simple as that. Final game from the Friday slate, the Oklahoma City Thunder defeat the New York Knicks to extend their win streak to 14 games. The final score was 117-107. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander led the way with 33 points, 4 rebounds, and 7 assists. Aaron Wiggins with a huge fourth quarter performance. I think he scored 15 points in the fourth. He ended the night with 19 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, and 2 blocks. And J-Dub, Jalen Williams, had 20 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, and a block. I'll talk more about the Thunder when I talk about the Celtics game in a little bit, but down against the New York Knicks, being able to come back, being a resilient team, those are the wins that matter. Those are the wins that really pop out. When you beat a team that is as talented as the New York Knicks, when you beat them in a game like this, that just speaks volumes, and that is a highlighted win on the record. It's like a ranked win in college football. Those wins matter. It's a tough grind out game late in the season in the NFL. Those wins matter. Close games matter. And this game mattered. For the Knicks, Karl-Anthony Towns, 17 points, 22 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals. Jalen Brunson, 22 points, 3 rebounds, 9 assists. Mikal Bridges, 24 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, and a block. OG Anunoby, 20 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists. And Josh Hart, 19 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, 1 block. Why did I just name all that out? The starters accounted for 102 points of the 107. The other 5, 2 points came from Landry Fields, 3 points came from Precious Achiuwa. I understand they are missing Mitchell Robinson, but let me be clear. The moment an injury happens, and unfortunately it will, this team is not going to be that good anymore. Here's why. Tom Thibodeau is known for, I want my best 5 guys out there as much as possible. If you need a break, let me know, but be ready to go back in. We've seen it when he was in Chicago, we saw it when he was in Minnesota, and we've seen it again in New York. You have 3 players on this team who are averaging 40-plus minutes a game, and the 3 are Bridges, Anunoby, and Hart. Brunson and Cat aren't far behind. You need to have difference makers on your bench. The regular season is made to test things out. If you want to be a contender, you have to be able to trust the guys off your bench. I know people made a meme out of it, but Jaylen Brown really meant what he said when he said, when we play the Pistons, we know that Pritchard is going to take over the game. When we play the Hornets, we know Hauser is going to get up more shots than he usually would. You have to be able to experiment. You have to be able to just try things. Nobody's asking you to play Tyler Kolek 40 minutes. Nobody's asking you to play Jericho Sims 30 minutes. Porty 30 minutes. Nobody's asking you to play Matt Ryan 28, 29 minutes. But what if one night one of them gets going, finds their shot, finds their groove? That helps. And then you trust them in the next game. And if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. But you can't just rely on 5 guys. There has never been a team in NBA history where they have said, we have 5 guys. And then we have like 4 or 5 guys who are on our bench and just like, we can kind of just trust them. No. Deuce McBride is injured. Mitchell Robinson is injured. The formula doesn't work. It doesn't work in real life. Sure, it works in 2K when you have injuries off and stamina at 100 and they never get tired. That works perfectly. But that doesn't work here. Like, it just won't work. Sure, 102 points from your starters is great. That's awesome. But that's not great when your total is 107. Now, if that's 102 points from your starters and you score 122 points total, that's great. That's a win in this game. That's momentum. There is nothing more demoralizing than when a bench player who is cold or maybe just hasn't had a lot of moments just starts hitting shots. Sure, you could say Peyton Pritchard he has grown as a three-point shooter. He has grown as a playmaker and also just as a shot creator. But you just know that at halftime of Game 5 of the NBA Finals, when he hit that half-court shot, it just ripped the soul out of all the Mavericks fans. I'll tell you this, when Aaron Wiggins was scoring 15 points in the Thunder game on Sunday, I was getting demoralized. When Jalen Williams, when Jay Will hit a straightaway 3, when the Celtics had momentum, it hurt. Bench players are so important. I always questioned when I was younger. I was like, why does so-and-so play this? Like, why does Manu Ginobili come off the bench? Because you want difference makers off your bench. Sure, Manu Ginobili could have been a starter. No questions asked. But when you have him come off the bench, it allows the offense to slow down. You need players to cycle. You can't always have the same 5. You're going to cycle players in and out. You're going to cycle 2 or 3 guys. And then you're going to cycle a couple minutes later, you're going to take the next 2 guys. When you have a 6th man or a 7th or an 8th man that can help you alleviate the stress, it's massive. And that's what the Knicks don't have right now. They have 5 guys. God forbid a horrible injury happens, then you have 4. And guess what? You can't win a game when you have 4 guys against 5. Just Phoenix beat Philly. Thank God. I'll show you a perfect example of that right now. The Knicks are hosting the Magic. It's Monday night for reference. Monday, January 6th. Awkward. The New York Knicks are without Karl Anthony Towns. I think just for tonight. Josh Hart, 13 points. Mikal Bridges, 24. Jalen Brunson, 20. OG Anunoby, 8. OG and Brunson are shooting 37, 36% respectively. Their bench has a combined 15 points. They're down 11 to the Magic, who are without Gary Harris Jr., Mo Wagner, Franz Wagner, and Jalen Suggs. And I know Paolo Banchero is just off the injury list, but he isn't playing. At the Garden, losing by 11 to an injury-riddled team. You lost 1 due to injury, so you're at 4, and one of them didn't show up. One of them isn't shooting the ball well. And so you have 2. Starting 5 is great. The best starting 5 in the league, awesome. Doesn't matter anything if you don't have anything more than that starting 5. But I mean, what do I know? Wemby has 22, 13, 4, and 5. That's ridiculous. I mean, it's a freak. But yeah, the Knicks need to figure it out. I know they're going to make him. They should at least make a move at the deadline to get a couple bench pieces. But I don't know if Mitchell Robinson is just going to be enough of a trade package. But we shall see. 3 games from Saturday now. The Detroit Pistons defeated the Minnesota Timberwolves 119-105. Cade Cunningham led the way for the Pistons with 40 points, 6 rebounds, 9 assists. Just a ridiculous game. Malik Beasley provided 23 points of his own with 2 rebounds, 1 assist, and 3 steals. And Asar Thompson, 10 points, 10 rebounds, 2 assists, 6 steals on 100% shooting. Fun fact, Asar Thompson was the first player in NBA history to record 10 steals, 5 rebounds, 5 steals, and on 100% shooting percentage in a half. He was the first player to ever do that in NBA history. Asar Thompson's ridiculous, and so is Amen. They're both ridiculous. They're both freaks on the offense. They're both freaks on the defensive side, that is, sorry. And they're really improving their offensive game. And so I do think that we are going to be looking back at that draft and say those 2 were some of the best picks out of that draft. But this game really was the Cade Cunningham game. My biggest concern with Cade has always been his shot making ability. Not so much in his shot creating, because I think he, with his size being 6'5", 6'6", with overall being a strong, good size for a guard of the modern day guard. My concern was always, will he be able to make the shots consistently? And that's what he did. I'm going to just pull up his shooting percentages because it really did feel like he was just making them left and right. He shot 52% from the field, 15 of 29, and 4 of 8 from 3. He was getting to the foul line as well, 6 of 7 from the line. The moment Cade Cunningham has SGA shot making ability in terms of shot percentages, I think he becomes a top 15 player in the league. I know that's a hot take. I know it is. But with somebody of his size, with somebody of his playmaking ability, we've seen the passes and just overall plays he can make. And if you increase that defensive ability even just a little bit, he is going to become a top 15 player with ease. I know it's a bold statement, but he is the lead for the revival of the Detroit Pistons. He is so talented. He is so good. Detroit wants to win. I mean, we've seen it with the Lions. We've seen it with just how much passion their fan base has. They want to win. And I think Cade Cunningham is really going to be the force of that. So, but the other major storyline from this game was Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards led the way for the Timberwolves, scoring over half their points. Ant scored 53 points with 6 rebounds, 2 assists, and Julius Randle had 17 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists. Ant scored on about 50% shooting, which is very good. But it was the quote from after the Celtics game that really amplified this performance. Anthony Edwards, while talking to the media, he said, it's basically in response to him getting doubled during the Celtics game. That was the whole Celtics game plan was, hey, you beat us before. We're not going to let it happen again. Give it to Gobert. Give it to Naz Reid. Give it to Nickeil Alexander-Walker. We're going to get the ball out of your hands. That's what they did. And so with that, Ant was kind of talking about, like, what did he think about the doubles? And he said, it's not how I want to play. I'm only 23. I don't want to just be passing the ball all night. So what did he do? He didn't pass the ball, really. He had 2 assists. So I get the aspect. Having a game in which your star player scores 50-something points is very exciting. No doubt about it. If Jason Tatum could go out and score 50 every game, that'd be sweet. But guess what? It's not winning basketball. He was turning the ball over. I think he had 6 turnovers in this game. Let me double check that. Yeah, 6 turnovers. And it was just causing a lot of issues. Like, sure, you can hit all the shots you want, but if nobody else is going to get involved, then they're probably going to win the game. That was my whole moniker with the Celtics last season. With the Mavericks, everybody was saying, "Oh, Luka and Kyrie, best duo in the league." Well, if you take out one of them, the other can go for 70, and if the rest of the team doesn't really make shots, then sure. This is the perfect example of that. Anthony Edwards went 16 of 31. The next highest total shot attempts in the game was Julius Randle taking 12. Then it was Nickeil Alexander-Walker taking 8, Naz Reid taking 7, and a couple guys taking 6. That's not winning basketball. It's not. It's just not. Like, I don't know what to tell people. I don't know what you want me to say. It's just not. The Minnesota Timberwolves only go as far as Anthony Edwards wants to take them. If he wants to take a step up in terms of being the guy in Minnesota, win an MVP, take them to the finals, sure, you could say, like, oh, their roster sucks. Does it? I'm not saying Julius Randle is better than Cat. Like, I'm not. But you have a defensive player of the year, 4-time defensive player of the year in Rudy Gobert. You have a 6-man of the year award winner in Naz Reid. You have a multi-time All-Star in Mike Conley, who I know has regressed quite a lot compared to last season. But then you have just so many young, talented superstar stars. Dante DiVincenzo, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Jaden McDaniels. Was Cat really the engine? Was Cat really like that important? Like, yeah, he was, obviously. I'm not saying that he wasn't important, but was he really like the glue that held that team together? Because it looks like it. The Minnesota Timberwolves right now are in 10th in the Western Conference. And as of right now, they're beating the Clippers by 4 right now. And why is that? Because Anthony Edwards has 7 assists. I'm not going to say that's the total reason, but it also helps that Naz Reid and DiVincenzo both have 13 points off the bench. But that's just not winning basketball. Like, as much as people criticize Jason Tatum has the one thing he realized was people are finding out I'm such a good scorer. Let me work on my playmaking. What did he do? He became a great playmaker. It's as simple as that. I get it. Nobody at 23 wants to. They want to be able to. They want the Jordan numbers. They want the T-Mac numbers. They don't want the Stockton numbers. They want the young LeBron numbers. Sometimes you got to pass. It's as simple as that. Next game up on Saturday. I know I just talked about the Nuggets and Spurs, but we're talking about them again because they played back-to-back. Thank you, Adam Silver. Nuggets defeated the Spurs this time, 122-111. Nikola Jokic, something light. Just 46 points, 9 rebounds, 10 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks. Yeah, it's pretty gross. Pretty gross. Michael Porter Jr., 28 points, 10 rebounds, 2 assists. And Jamal Murray, 13 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, 5 steals. I mean, I understand both sides of the MVP argument with SGA and Jokic, and I understand defense matters, and I very much am somebody that accounts for defense a lot more than I'd say a lot of like the voters do. But when you talk about MVP, and I'm going to talk about Shea's case in a little bit, I don't know really. I think the Nuggets would probably end up with like 10 wins if they don't have Jokic. They're probably going to end up with like 40-something, 50-something this season. Like, that is pretty valuable for a player. And sure, you could say like, oh, he takes all the shots. He's not shooting 30-footers. He's shooting like 5-footers. And he's getting doubled, and they're just sometimes not going in. Like, I didn't know a somewhat contested mid-range is better than a contested 2-pointer, like a 3 or 4-footer. If so, then man, I really was playing basketball wrong. But having a game like this, a bounce back game on a back-to-back, as I said, the importance of a back-to-back game. Bounce back game on a back-to-back in which, on the road as well, losing on your home court the night before and getting that redemption. This game, I think it did go into OT. I'm like almost confident it did. I'm so confident because it did. You want to know what the OT score was? 14-3. The Nuggets outscored the Spurs 14-3 in overtime. That is veteran DNA. That is championship DNA. That's not me saying the Nuggets are going to win the championship, but that's what a valuable player does. And with Nikola Jokic, I just think I don't know if there has been a more complete offensive player ever. When you take into account 3-level scoring, being able to read the defense, putting the ball exactly where it needs to go, putting your teammates in the best position to score or help lead to a basket, shot making, shot creating, just overall flow. I can't really think of a better player than Nikola Jokic. I'm not saying he is the greatest, like he's one of the greatest offensive players of all time. No question about it. I will nowhere ever say, in no way ever, I will never say in any shape or form that Nikola Jokic is the best scorer of all time, because I think that's Kevin Durant. I will never say he is the best passer of all time, although he's 100% up there. But in terms of a total offensive package, I can't think of anyone better than Nikola Jokic. It's as simple as that. Simple as that. And for the Spurs, I mean, Wemby had still a very good game. 20 points, 23 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal, 4 blocks. Harrison Barnes provided a lot, 22 points, 1 rebound, 3 assists. And Devin Vassell with another solid game, 19 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists. Like the concern I have for Wemby is just the shot attempts. It really is. He shot 37% from the field, 2 of 12 from 3. If you were to take away 3-pointers, he would have shot 5 of 7 from the... Like, those are the moments that mind boggle me. I understand if all the shots were open and the shot isn't falling, then the shot isn't falling. It's as simple as that. And that's how it is sometimes. That's just how it is. But 2 of 12 from 3? There has to be a moment after like the 4th or 5th miss where you're like, maybe I should realize I'm 7-4 and go post up. I'm not telling you to just post up though. Like, I'm like, range the mid post, catch the ball, face up, dribble and drive, and use your 7-4 body and dunk on somebody, or get to the line, cause a foul. You're 7-4. A layup is literally light work. It is literally should be second nature for you at this point. Anywhere from 5 feet in the basket, it should be an automatic basket for Victor Wembanyama. And if not, you should be fouled. And if it isn't called a foul, then it probably was a foul that was missed. Why? I like, those are the moments where I get like where people are saying they're taking too many threes. Sure, 100%. But if they're open and you miss them, then that's it. But if Wemby really wants to be as dominant as he can be, he's got to utilize the paint more. I know that makes me sound like an old head, but it just is how it is. Final game from Saturday. The Los Angeles Clippers defeated the Atlanta Hawks 131-105. Ivica Zubac had 18 points, 18 rebounds, 4 assists. Kevin Porter Jr., 15 points, 3 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 steals. James Harden, 15 points, 2 rebounds, 10 points, 2 rebounds, 15 assists, 2 steals. Norman Powell, 20 points, 4 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 steal. And Amir Coffey, 17 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists. I could care less what the stats were. Kawhi Leonard played basketball. Thank God. Kawhi will always be one of my favorite players of all time. And truly, and like, I know it's weird to say this because of like the success he has had. Like, we're talking about 2-time finals champion, 2 times finals MVP, multiple time defensive player of the year winner. I think he's been on 7 all defensive teams, multiple all NBA first teams or second teams at least. Like, one of the best players, and help kind of very much assorted himself within the generation of the Curry, LeBron, KD. But I do have him as like one of the what ifs players, you know? If Zaza Pachulia I hate Zaza. If Zaza Pachulia doesn't stick out his foot and Kawhi roll his ankle, are the Spurs NBA champions that season? If he doesn't get hurt in, I think it was the 21 playoffs, against if he was there, did the Suns go on and face the Bucks and maybe change history a little bit? Like, if he had been playing like consistently for the past couple of playoffs, I think he will be. The Clippers are going to be very good. No question about it. They were already solid and they just added back a superstar. No doubt about it. A lot of the questions with Kawhi will always just be like, what if? Or like, what was? Like, what could have been? But more importantly, he's back. And that just I was smiling so much watching the game. And it made me so happy. Like, it truly did, because having a player like Kawhi with so much potential, so much promise, and just being able to watch him play is so entertaining. He was, before Wemby, I think he was, I'd say by far and away, the best two-way player in the NBA. Like, from 2015-16, or maybe 2016-2017, up until last season, or up until this season, it was Kawhi Leonard was the best two-way player in the NBA. And when I say two-way, sure, you could say Giannis. But when I say two-way, I think 3-level scoring, 3-level defense. Can guard you at the rim, can guard you in the mid-range, and can guard you on the perimeter. Giannis had that 3 on the defensive side. Originally, he had the 1-level scoring. He wasn't as effective from the mid-range. Now he's kind of a 2-level scorer, which is great. No question about it. But Kawhi Leonard is back, and it's so good to see. For the Hawks, very disappointing game. I know they were without Jalen Johnson and Bogdanovich, but Trae Young, 20 points, 4 rebounds, 14 assists. Zachary Richauche, 13 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. Garrison Matthews, 15 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists. I'm not worried about the Hawks. I think they'll be a playoff contender. Not a contender, but a playoff team, at least. I do think, though, if you give them 1 or 2 more pieces, they could easily be a major threat in the East. So, watch out for the Hawks, for sure. Just for everyone on the pod, Wemby is up to 8 blocks. It's pretty cool. Why is he on the bench right now? Nope, only has 3 fouls. I thought he had 6. And also, the Clippers are up on the Wolves now with 4 minutes remaining. So, Kawhi isn't shooting well. Damn. Yeah, just a little update. Mid-episode update. Final game, the one from Sunday. Thunder versus Celtics. Thunder defeated the Celtics 105-92. I'll get my SGA MVP perspective out there. Thunder on a franchise record 15-game win streak. With Isaiah Hartenstein, I think they are 19-1 or 20-1, maybe. They are first in the West. I think they are 29-5, maybe 30-5. Just a ridiculous team. In this game, SGA led the way, 33 points, 11 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 steals, and 2 blocks. Isaiah Hartenstein, 8 points, 10 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, 3 blocks. And Cason Wallace, 13 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals. I am very much in the foundation that believes winning matters when it comes to the MVP. Sure, you could say, like, that's a team stat. You could say, in all honesty, it doesn't matter as much because it should be best player in the world. Whatever. It doesn't really matter. I think, as of right now, SGA is the MVP. And here is why. If you were to tell a Thunder fan, hey, you're going to be missing your newly signed backup or newly signed center for the first like 10 or 12 games. And in that 10 or 12 game span, you're also going to lose your second best, arguably top 20 player in the world, running mate in Chet Holmgren. What do you think your record is after the first 31 or so games? Or 35 games. Sorry. What do you think your record is? I don't know many Thunder fans that are going to say 30-5. 30-5. Like, they are, like, the historicness of the Celtics season last season, the historicness of the Celtics 2024 season was their net rating, their scoring differential, and just like being up there within the upper echelon of great teams. We have 3 teams in the NBA that have 10 plus point scoring margins per game. It's the Thunder at 12 something, it's the Cavs at 10, 11 something, and it's the Celtics at 10 something. Those are 3 generational teams. The Thunder are doing this without a defensive player of the year candidate in Chet Holmgren / a 20 point per game scorer in Chet Holmgren. They were down 10 at half. They were down 65-55. They gave up 27 points in the second half. I will do my mini Celtics rant that isn't as concerned as it was when they lost to the Pacers last week. 27 points to a all otherworldly offense. We are talking about the Boston Celtics that had the highest net rating in NBA history last season. We are talking about the Boston Celtics fully healthy with Derek White, Drew Holiday, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Al Horford, Kristaps Porzingis, Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser. A team that went 16-3 in the playoffs. Playoffs? You held that team to 27 points in a half? Now, sure, a lot of people can say, well, it was the Celtics shot making. Sure, it was. They didn't hit shots. But guess what? The turn of the tide was the defense of the Oklahoma City Thunder. It was Cason Wallace forcing steals, Lou Dort picking off passes, causing deflections, just making players uncomfortable. And you have a guy, there was nobody else on the Thunder from yesterday's game who scored more than 15 points. There's one player who did. Oh, it was SGA with 33. For reference, he had 11 points in the first half on 50% shooting. Or in the first quarter, that is. And then he had 6 points in the second quarter. He went 4 of 8 from the field, 9 points in the third, and 2 of 3 from the field with 7 points. He also had a massive block on Jason Tatum. He had a couple huge steals. I get it. Nikola Jokic is the best player in the world. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander right now, I think, should be the MVP. I know I said I wouldn't talk about MVP, but I think we're like kind of around the halfway point, I think, is when the discussion kind of ramps up. There's nobody playing better basketball right now on both sides of the ball than SGA. There's no player that is helping, like, and I know that's weird for me to say because of the numbers that Jokic has put up the past couple of games, but it's like, you can put up all those numbers all you want. If your team doesn't win, then it doesn't matter. Hey, you lost your second best player. You're going to go on a 15-game win streak right now instead of franchise record. And that record comes to a toll on Wednesday, where they travel to Cleveland to play against the Cavs. If they win that game, then holy shit. Thunder are the best team in the West. It's the Thunder, Gap, Mavericks, and Grizzlies for me. It's just how it is. Celtics, 9 of 47 from 3. I did the math. If they made 4 more, they win that game. Or if they shot 30%, which is 5 more, then they win that game. I'm going to check another thing. First half, they had 6 turnovers. Second half, they had 10. First quarter, they shot 44% from the field, 35% from 3. Second quarter, they shot 60% from the field, and 13% from 3. So not great. Shooting splits in the third, 22.7% and 7.7%. And then fourth quarter was 16.7% and 18.2%. So the Celtics just couldn't hit a shot. Simple as that. Worst half of the season. Fair to say. But that's what it was. If the Celtics shoot like they usually shoot, then we win. If the Celtics played the way that they should have played, they win. I can't put it any more simpler than that. I'm not worried. I'm really not. The one Instagram question I got was from my brother, AJ. Shout out you, AJ. You're the GOAT. He asked, what is wrong with the Celtics? Just couldn't hit shots. They haven't played as high pressure of a defense all year. The only time was the Warriors, but they were just blitzing Tatum. They would just double Tatum and force him into bad situations and then cause a bad pass. This was the first time we've played a truly rambunctious defense that was in our face 24 minutes straight. And they got pounded for it. Sure, you can be the Celtics fan that says, we win, we were 49-3 when Jason Tatum has a higher than 33% usage. Well, guess what? You go be the coach then. You go be the coach. If you want Jason Tatum to go get the ball, then have him stop standing in the corner. And I know you could say, oh, but Joe Mazzulla is setting up the set. Really? Really? You don't think maybe he wants a playoff? Or 2 plays off? Like those are the issues I have with the modern day NBA fan. It's just the aspect of, I get it. I wish Tatum was shooting 30 shots per game. Because the kind of scorer he is, he would get 40 a game. No question. Pretty easily. But that just isn't how the Celtics play basketball. It's just not. Jaylen Brown in the second half, 0-7, 0 points. Kristaps Porzingis in the second half, 7 points on 2 of 7 shooting. Derek White in the second half, 0 points, 0-4 shooting. Drew Holiday shot 0 of 4, excluding the first quarter. Al Horford, 1 of 2 in the second half. Peyton Pritchard shot 0 of 5 from the game. Sam Hauser shot 1 of 5 from the game. It's as simple as that. Sure, you could say, oh, I hate Jaylen Brown and how much he handles the ball and how much, his passes received number to passes given. Yeah, do you want to also be nice if we made 7 more threes? The Celtics as a team this season shoot 36.7% from 3. That ranks 14th in the NBA right now. Sure, it's not great, but guess what? That's pretty good for the amount of attempts that they take. So let's do the math real quick. 36.7 of 46. Okay. So we're going to do 46 times 0.367. That's 16.882. That's 17 threes. So let's go back to the score. 17 minus 9 is 8. Can't believe it took me that long. So if you did 8 times 3, that would be 24. So if you added 24 points to the score, the Celtics win that game by 11. And nobody's having these arguments. They didn't shoot the ball well. It's as simple as that. AJ, I hope that answers your question. Thank you for asking. It's a very good question. Why did Bullet Joe do so well? Anyway, to wrap up the podcast, or this episode at least, not the podcast as a whole, I saw a graphic from Nerd Sesh. If you don't know who Nerd Sesh is a duo by the name of Logan and Carson, 2 incredibly intelligent, incredibly insightful content creators who I found on TikTok a couple years ago. But they have a podcast called Nerd Sesh, and they are football and basketball primarily. Logan is more football oriented and Carson is more basketball oriented. And they have an incredible vast knowledge of players and an understanding of the game and stats, whatever. Hence the Nerd Sesh name. But they made a top 10 list of the top 10 players that they would want to if they had to build a franchise around 10 players. And I agreed with all 10 of the players. I disagreed with the rankings. And so I'm going to go through and give the ranking that I would have for the top 10. Again, these are my opinions and my opinions only. You can take whatever you want from it, and you could also tell me to go shove it. And I guess what? I wouldn't blame you for either. I really wouldn't. So, kind of my criteria for this, one of the big ones is age. I think when you are building a franchise around a player, age is a huge factor. I think in terms of when you are looking at a player, when you are looking at what makes a player so great, you have to kind of take into account their age profile. You have to be able to take into account, like, hey, how good is this player? And at what age are they kind of coming to this sense, Second one is performance. I'm not choosing players that are like, they're super young, but they have crazy potential. Like, I'm not going to do that and just like try and like bank off of the fact like, oh, I think this player is going to be really good. Like, if you are young and you have like this crazy, like if you are young and you have this crazy projection, then that's great. But projection only can get you so far. Projection helps when you're looking to build a franchise. But in reality, I only have about one player who we still have a lot of projection for on this list. Next one is future, and I think future and projection kind of just go hand in hand. What are your next steps? Like, what needs to be worked on? Like, how much more and like how much more time will it take to really get to that point? So yeah, those are kind of my main criteria. And in reality, it's just my opinion. So I'm just pulling up the last age and just forgot to write them down. But all right. Number 10, Evan Mobley. Evan Mobley is an incredible talent. He is one of the best young centers in the NBA. He is 6'11", 7 feet, incredibly long, has developed his three-point shooting over the past couple seasons, and has shown, hey, I can be the anchor of a defense. He's the anchor of the defense for a 31-4 team. So he's 23. He's showcasing his ability to be a 3-level scorer. He is working on his footwork more and more. He has the ability to drive and dribble and showcase his ability to play make as well. And he has potential to be one of the best centers in this next generation of the NBA. I have him ranked third in terms of those centers. I just think he's incredibly talented. I think he's a player that really does drive the needle and is somebody that you can't just leave open and expect them just to like, you can't leave them open 25 feet away from the basket and expect them, oh, they should be on the post. Like, I'm just going to give them 10 feet of space. No, he'll hit the three. So I have Evan Mobley at 10. Number 9, Chet Holmgren, 22 years old. I think what Mobley does in the post is better. I think his playmaking and his vision is a tad bit better. But in terms of, and I say defensively, they're kind of even in terms of just overall length and explosiveness and just kind of reading the defense or reading an offense ability. But his shooting is better. His shot creation is better. His ball handling ability is better. I already said shot creating. And just overall, I think is a better offensive talent than Evan Mobley. But I do think that those two are very similar in terms of build. Both very long, 7 plus feet in terms of height, extremely long wingspans, and just two players who, if they kind of develop that playmaking style and you almost trust as like kind of a point forward situation, then that really would drive them up that list for sure. But I almost have them as true centers, and I know we're going to see Chet once he comes back from that hip injury as more of a power forward kind of role, and I think that's really going to expand his game more and more. Both of them move incredibly well. I think Chet maybe moves a little bit better, but yeah, I think Chet has more growth than Mobley. I think we are closer to a Mobley ceiling than we are to a Holmgren ceiling, if that makes sense. It should. at least. Number 8, Paolo Banchero. I think if he didn't get injured, he would be in conversation to be the 5th starter on the East All-Star team. I think it's pretty clearly Cat, Giannis, and Jason Tatum, and then it would have been a fight between those 4: Cat, Giannis, Jason Tatum, and Paolo Banchero for the 3 forward spots. He's improving his third level of scoring with a 3-point shot. We've seen his defensive ability. He can guard 1 through 5. He has developed his playmaking as well. And at 22 years old, he is just getting started. I think a lot of my ranking is also I trust with like the Mobley and the Holmgren situation. We've seen them as the 2 guy at best. I'd say the one game we've seen from Mobley is the Charlotte game a couple weeks ago, where he scored like 40 something. But other than that, we haven't really seen many games where he has been the number 1. And sure, that just purely has to do with team building and around him. And so that might change. But I do think those 2 are that have the capabilities to be number 1 very easily. We've seen Paolo be the number 1, and we've seen him in the playoffs be the only one to show up, in fact, for the Magic, especially during the series last season against the Cavs. And at 6'8", 6'9", 6'10", basically, who moves like a point guard, if he can start shooting like a shooting guard, then it's going to be a wrap. Number 7, Anthony Edwards. He's actually, in fact, the shortest player I have on this list. 6'3", 6'4", plays 6'5", 6'6". We know what he can do. I don't think we've seen his peak yet. I think his peak will come in like 3 years probably, and that's saying a lot. And there are going to be a couple guys on this list that I don't think we've seen their peak just yet, and that's pretty crazy to think about. But Anthony Edwards is one of the best offensive creators in the league with the ball. My only concern is kind of off the ball, but like he moves well off the ball, but more so spreading the ball around. Like, for example, the Detroit game, scores 50, doesn't really pass the ball a lot. If he can get the blend of that, then that's what makes him so dangerous. Very solid defensively. It's just, I think these next couple, and I think it's fair to say that this next spot could be flip-flop with him, and I think it's purely because of age, but I think Anthony Edwards very much has the chance to be a top 6 player in the world, and we saw glimpses of that last season. We saw glimpses of what he can be. When will he be it, is the question, I guess. Number 6, Giannis Antetokounmpo. He's the oldest player I have on this list at 30 years old, but in terms of a two-way player, if you have him on your defense, he's an anchor, and you get somebody who can easily get you 30 on like 20 shot attempts. Like, sure, as much as you want to say like his style of play isn't really for me, the way that he shoots isn't really into my interest. Sure, that's fine, but it works. He scores incredibly efficiently. He scores at an extremely effective rate, and you can't deny that. He would be higher on this list if he was 2 or 3 years younger, but unfortunately he's 30. So, and like that's like we're seeing prime Giannis. So like I don't get like, and I know he won a couple MVPs last couple years ago, but like this is the best Giannis we've seen, in my opinion, at least. And sure, you can say recency bias, but like, just when we look at an NBA player nowadays, we always think they have to get to their peak so quickly. Jason Tatum isn't at his peak, and that's my number 5, in fact. Like, Jason Tatum is 26 years old. The only reason people are kind of bored of him now is because he's had so much success. His first season, he helps leads a team to the conference finals. Without Kyrie, who was injured. Without Gordon Hayward, who was also injured. So what happens? He develops faster than some of these players on this list. He's been on 3 straight All-NBA first teams. He's an incredible offensive player, a very solid, very good playmaker, and shows that he has the defensive ability to get stops. Sure, you can call me a Celtics bias person all you want, but I really do think that if Jason Tatum wasn't wearing a Boston Celtics uniform, he would be loved by everybody. I do. I just do. Number 4, Luka Doncic. Just an offensive mastermind. Sure, he isn't perfect on defense. He's improved, but I mean, I would consistently take 30-point triple-doubles over with some lackluster defense. At times, lackluster. But I'd take 30-point triple-doubles with ease on my team. You could build around Luka with 90% of the players in the NBA. You need a 3-point shooter, he will get the ball to you. You have a rim runner, he will get the ball to the spot that you need to catch it and slam it home. He can create the shots that he needs to create. He can get to the point where he needs to get to with his pace, with his balance. He's Luka Doncic. Like, it's pretty good. Number 3, Nikola Jokic. Yeah, arguably the most sound offensive body we've ever seen in a player. The reason why he isn't 2 or 1 is because of age. He's 29. I would like my player that I'm building around to be on my team for 15 years. In 15 years, Nikola Jokic will be 44. It's not what I want. But that being said, I mean, he's just so good. And if you haven't seen it yet, go watch a Nuggets game. Next time they're on primetime television, go watch a Nuggets game. It's pretty good. Number 2, SGA. 6'6" point guard who can hit the shots that you need him to, can play defense incredibly well, and works so well with other players. And I think it is his balance, his demeanor, it's his mentality towards the game that really does help him become that X factor level. He is a 3-tier scorer. I wouldn't say as much as Luka, but I think he's a better shot creator because of his speed and his quickness. He's also a better defender, and I think he's leading the league in clutch rating right now. So SGA is my number 2, and number 1 I think is pretty obvious. It's a French guy. He's 7'4". He's an alien, and he's arguably a top 6-7 player in the world. It's Victor Wembanyama. I mean, I could sit here and talk for 20 minutes about Victor, but I'm not, because this podcast has been an hour and a half long, but I know it won't be an hour and a half long. When you're listening to it, it'll probably be like an hour 15 or something. But it is what it is. Victor Wembanyama is going to be the best player in the NBA in 2 years, probably. He's already a superstar. Let's check the final stats for the Bulls versus Spurs game. Bulls won. Wow. 23 points, 14 rebounds, 4 assists, 8 blocks. Yeah, I'd love a defensive anchor like that. And then if he improves his scoring ability, it's going to be wraps. So that's the list. It's pretty simple. Yeah, I hope you all have an incredible day. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Triple Threat Talk podcast. Once again, I'm your host, Connor Ryan. Please follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Now, weird to say that again. And please like and subscribe. Please leave a comment, follow, do whatever you got to do. Today's player, I'm going to go with a kind of a recent one, but he's already out of the league. Jerome Robinson. Shut up, Boston College. I hope you all have an incredible day. I will see you on Friday for the next episode. Peace out.